Good morning everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to go back to basics and do a starter video for anybody that is new to Cricut or new to Cricut Design Space. I'm going to show you today how to make a basic decal in Cricut Design Space, how to cut it from vinyl, and all of the points that you need to know when you want to start out making vinyl decals. So let's jump straight into how to get going. Okay, so I've got a blank canvas set up here in Cricut Design Space already, and I've got a couple of decals that I need to make for balloons. So what I'm going to do is start off by just going through a couple of things on Design Space. So when you open up Design Space for the first time, this is the screen that you'll get, and it's got a blank canvas on it, and I've got my grid set up on here, and this is a centimetres measurement at the top. You can change this if you want to. If you like inches better, you can change it to inches. So to do that, you just go up to the top and click on these three lines. And the menu comes up here. And if you just go down to settings, you'll get the Design Space settings box come up. And you can choose from here what you'd like to do. So I've got my language in English. My canvas grid is the full grid. You can have it as a partial grid, which just gives you the big lines and none of the little squares in the middle. And then you can change your measurements to imperial, which would be inches, or metric, which is how I've got it for centimetres. And then I've got my saving on the cloud and the computer, or you can choose it for cloud only. So that's how you do that. So to do this design that I'm going to look at today, it's just a basic happy birthday Natalie. So I'm going to choose some text. So I'm going to go over to the text icon on the left hand side. And then you'll get a little box come up at the bottom. So then you just type in what you'd like it to say. Okay. So it's happy birthday Natalie. So before I change my font, what I prefer to do is make sure that my text is selected. So you can either click and drag to select your text, or you can go up to the top here to select all, and you can click on that and it will select it. So now on the right hand side on the layers menu here, the layer has been highlighted in a little bit of a darker grey. It's not that much different, but you can see the difference if I click off it. So if I select all again, just watch how it changes. So now you can see that it's selected, okay? So what I like to do first of all is go up to alignment, and I want to centre my text. So if I just click now on centre, and that has centered my text, okay? So that's how to center. Next, I want to change my font. So up here, we've got the font drop down box. So if we click on the drop down arrow, you'll get all your different fonts that you can choose from come up. I do have a Cricut Access subscription, so I've got access to all of the Cricut fonts that are on there. And then I've also got system fonts, and system fonts are ones that are on your device already, so that are already on your computer, or they're also ones that you may have downloaded from external websites like Font Bundles or Defont and places like that. So that is how we go between those. So we can click on Cricut and all the Cricut ones are there. We can click on system, all of the system fonts are there, or we can click on all, and now we can see everything. So there's another box at the top here, and this is Kerned Font. Okay, now when this box is checked, it means that all of the fonts that are on display in the list are basically cursive in some way, shape or form, or they've got kerning features in their code. If you get rid of that tick in that box, all of these fonts now that it's showing won't have any kerning feature, so they won't join together automatically. They're all going to have spaces in between the letters. I have got a separate video on kerning that I did when this feature came out. It's not actually been out all that long, so I'll link that video up above for you now. So the font that I'm going to use is a child's year, and I use that a lot for balloons. So I've typed in the word child and pressed enter. Now it's brought that font up for me, but just bear in mind, this isn't a cursive font. If I'd got the tick in the only Kerned Fonts box checked, then it wouldn't show me the font that I'm looking for. So just bear that in mind when you're searching as well. So if I now click on that font, it's going to change my text to that font. All right, there we go. Let's just move it back up. In the centre of my design, you can see it just there. There is a little cross, and that is the centre of the design. And I like to line it up with one of the lines on the canvas. Now, I look at this font and this design now, and I think that they are closer together. The top line and the bottom line, this one's got a much bigger gap here than the top line does. And I don't like the way that the Cricut software does this, and it does it with quite a lot of fonts. So you can change it by using this line space feature here. However, it's going to change this one as well. So whilst it will fix this problem, it's probably going to overlap this one. So let's just try by clicking down. It's a bit slow to catch up sometimes. So you can see it is making it smaller, but it's making it smaller between these two as well. So we don't want that. So let's just undo. So I'm going to now select all again, and what I'm going to do is ungroup my letters, but I'm going to ungroup it into lines rather than individual letters. So if we select all and then come up to advanced, and then we've got two options. We've got ungroup to letters and ungroup to lines. If I were to select ungroup to letters, it's going to make every single letter movable on my canvas, and I don't want that. So I want to keep them all in lines, so I'm going to choose ungroup to lines. Okay, so now each line is a separate layer, as you can see on the right hand side. So we've got the Natalie, the birthday and the happy all in separate lines. So now if I click on each one, I'm going to be able to move it around. So I'm going to line it up with a line again on its center line. What I like to do is get it so that it's on a line, and then I have one line in between each line. So I've got one full box in between each line, which is how I prefer it to be. And this one is going to be roughly, so about there, like that. Okay, so now I'm happy with the placement of each of my lines. They've got the same distance between them, more or less, but I like that better. So now, because obviously each line is separate, we need to group it, because if we go to make it now, the Cricut spreads it all out all over the mat, and that's not what we want it to do. So if we cancel that, how do we fix this? It's really, really simple. So if we go and select all again, and we're going to go down to the bottom to attach. Okay, so now it's on the right hand side, we've got our group, but it's turned into a sub function. So we've now got attach at the top and then group as our next layer down. So if we now click on make it, there we go. So our mat now mirrors the design on the page exactly how we want it to be. So now we can adjust our sizing. So to do this, I will show you a couple of different methods to do this. So you can either, if you know the exact measurements of your item, you can come up to this sizing feature at the top here. Okay, so the padlock at the top here in this sizing feature, if we were to change this width size to 10 centimeters, because we've got that locked on the right hand side, it has changed the height in proportion to the width. But if we say Okay, so now I know that my item is 10 centimetres across, but I actually want my design to be 10 centimetres down as well because it's a square. So I don't want it to be rectangular like it is now. So what I'm going to do is come up to the padlock and click on it, and it opens the padlock. You can see the difference there now. So now that allows me to go into the height and change my height to 10 as well. It will distort your font, because obviously stretching it to be how you want it to be. The other way of doing it is by using this drag handle here with the double-ended arrows on it. So if you just click on it and hold it down, you can stretch your sizing of your item completely how you want it to be. And again, it's got a lock feature on the bottom left-hand side. So if we click on that, now this is going to allow us to make it skinny or really wide, you know, really change our proportions. We can flip it back on itself. There's lots of options there for that. So I've just got my sizes back to how they were at the start now, and I'm going to adjust my size for my balloon. And I know that roughly I need mine to be about 18 centimetres across. And I like to just make it a little bit bigger downwards, but I've got a bit of leeway there. So okay, so that's about the rough size that I want it to be for on a balloon. So next, what I'm going to do is change the colour of my design so that it matches with the colour of the vinyl that I'm going to use today. So to do that, if we select all again by clicking on select all, and then come up the top to this little black box. It's usually black unless you've changed it already, or unless you're using a different design. So if we click on that, and then you can come into here and click on any of these colours to make it the colour of your vinyl. If there isn't a choice there that you like, you can click on advanced, and then you get this gradient box of all the different colours that you can choose. So if you just slide over to the colours that you are going to be using, and then you can choose which one you'd like. So I think that one is perfect. Then we just click off it, and that's ready now. So now we can start cutting this out on our machine. So before we start cutting, I'm just going to go through the different mats and what their uses are. So there are several different Cricut cutting mats available. I think I've got all of them here to show you. And let me just move my vinyl out of the way for now. So this one is the fabric grip mat, and this is suitable for all fabrics, and you'll use your rotary blade, or you can actually use your fine point blade on this as well. I have used my fine point blade to cut felt on this mat, and you can see that the remnants of it are on there still. I probably should have covered it over, but that is what your fabric grip mat is, and we're not using that one obviously for this project. Then you have got your strong grip mat, and that one is the purple mat. It's specifically for thicker cardstocks, glitter cardstocks. You also can use it for magnetic materials. I have a video where I've made some magnets before, so I'll link that one above for you. You can also use it for chipboard, poster boards, things that are really stiff like corrugated cardboards. And it's also the one that if you are into making bows, or you want to make bows in the future with faux leather, this is the board that you'll use. Now this mat is the green mat. I use this the most out of all of my mats, and this is the standard grip mat. So the green mat is for cardstock textured papers, iron-on, which is also HTV. We use it for vinyl, we use it for infusible ink as well. So this is the one that you'll see me using most of the time. So this is the mat we're actually going to use today. And then the last one at the bottom is the light grip mat. And this is the one that is the least sticky out of all of the mat family. And this one is used for thinner, lighter items like copy paper, wrapping paper, tissue paper, washi sheet you'd use this one with, and any very light cardstock. So this is the mat that you'll use for those. So let me pop these away, and I've got a mat that I'm going to use here today. So this is what a well-used green mat looks like, and I'm going to use today this vinyl. This is the Hot Pink De Tape 440. It has an acrylic adhesive and it is guaranteed as being permanent exterior quality, I think for 2 to 3 years. So it's a pretty good one. It's considered to be permanent. I don't generally make that much stuff that requires permanent vinyl, but this is the one that I'm using today. So when you're choosing a vinyl, don't just go on the colour. I always like to read the reviews, join a few Facebook pages and ask on there if anybody else has used the vinyl that you're looking at, how they got on with it, what the pros and cons that they found of it were. So that's definitely a good way to start. And today I'm going to show you how to do a test cut as well. So we're going to do a test cut on our material just to make sure that it's okay and that it's going to weed okay before we start using a big piece of it for our design. So let's just pop the cutting mat to one side and get our piece of vinyl out. So I use hair bands just to keep all my big rolls together. So I'm just going to use a paper trimmer. One of the things I like about this vinyl is that it's got a grid on the back, and I much prefer a vinyl that's got a grid on it because it just makes life so much easier when you are cutting it. So our design is, let's say 20 by 18. Just cut this out. So there is my piece of vinyl. Okay, so you can see on the screen now that we have got our design, and here is a little gap on the screen there. So what I'm going to do, is cut a test cut first of all. So I'm going to go over to shapes on the left hand side, and you can see all these different shapes, and we can choose any one of those as our design test cut. So I'm going to go for this star. So just click on it and it'll put a star into your canvas, but it's a bit big really, isn't it? So let's shrink it. So I'm going to make it there. Okay. So it will cut in the corner of my piece of vinyl and it isn't going to interfere with my design. So what I'm going to do is leave that like that. So now I've got 2 layers and I'm going to try and cut this one first. Okay, so what I'm going to do is come over to here on the layers menu, and you can see these little eyes all along here. So these are basically what we use when we want to hide a layer. So if we go over to that eye and click on it, it's going to hide that layer. So now the only layer that's going to cut is going to be the star. So let's go to make it. And then we can click on continue because I'm happy with the placement of that star. If you wasn't happy with it, you can actually just click on it and move it around your screen however you want it to be. But in the top corner is perfect. You can see on the left hand side it's showing us a smaller version of the mat. We've only got one mat and it's going to do a basic cut. So let's click on continue. And now the computer is just going to connect to the Cricut once it's found it. Okay, so now we've got our base material settings up on the screen. So what we want to do is choose the setting that is closest to our material. So I've got favourites set up here, and favourites are shown with this little gold coloured star on them. If you haven't got favourites set up, you can always look in popular. So click on popular, and these are ones that other people in the Cricut community are using a lot of the time, and quite a few of my favourites are on there as well, look. Or if there's nothing there that helps you to find or identify your material, if you go to browse all materials and click on there, you'll get a big old list of everything that you can use in your machine. So you can also search. So let's type in vinyl, and now we've got all these different vinyls that we can choose from. So we just want basic vinyl because that's all it is really. So let's just go down to the bottom and choose that one. So we can click on there and the tick appears, and then we can click on done. Okay, let's get our mat set up now. Here's my mat, and let's take off the protective cover. Make sure you keep your protective cover somewhere, because it's really important that you put that back onto your mat afterwards, just to help it to stay sticky. Okay, now this vinyl, let's turn it around so it's showing us the centimetres. So I've just zoomed in to show you that on the mat now we've got these little dashes around the side and along the top of the mat. And if we look at the design on the mat on Design Space, where we've put our little star, it's come underneath and next to these lines, and that basically means that the machine won't cut in these areas. So when you place your vinyl down, what you need to do is get it as close to the edge of those two lines as you possibly can. And because there's a little bit of a white lip on this, I've just overlapped it very slightly. Okay, I just use my fingers to press it down to start with. Okay. So once we've got that in place and we're happy with the placement of it, I'm going to use a brayer to just flatten it out nicely. And using a brayer is really good because it allows you to apply a very even pressure to your mat, and it ensures that your vinyl is evenly stuck down over the mat. Okay, so let's just go back onto Design Space now and look at the screen again. We are happy with our base material, setting it on vinyl there, and then we've got pressure here in the box. Now the pressure is something that you can change depending on the age and the sharpness of your blade. So I have recently changed my blade, so I don't feel as though I need as much pressure as I would if, say, my blade was older. So if you click on the drop down box just here, you'll see you have the three options of more, default or less. So because my blade is pretty new, I'm going to choose less. If my blade was sort of maybe a couple of 3 months old, I would choose default. And then if my blade is pretty old, I would choose more, so I've got more pressure and more cutting power going through my machine. So I'm choosing less on this occasion. So now if we look at the second tab, it says load, tools and materials. So we've got two clamps on the maker, clamp A and clamp B, and we don't need anything in clamp A because that's for pens and scoring stylus and things like that. In clamp B, this is where our blade goes. So I've already got my fine point blade in clamp B ready to go. So next it says load mat and press load and unload button, which is the button that's got the double-ended arrows on it on the maker. So as you can see, because we're on the make it screen, the insert mat button is already flashing away, so it's ready to take our mat. So we've got our mat prepared here. What we want to do is just pop it onto the bottom of our machine, and we use these plastic guides here to just guide our mat into the machine. Once we've got it there, if you just hold it with one hand and then press the button to insert the mat, the machine will grab the mat and pull it into itself. And now you can see on the right hand side that the C button is now flashing. So if we click on the C button, the cut will begin. So because we're only cutting the star, it's not going to take too long to do. So now that's finished, we can see that the flashing button for the insert mat is flashing again, and we use the same button to eject the mat. So just press that and it'll spit the mat out. So here is our mat. You can't really see the star in the corner. So I'm going to have a look now at weeding this out and checking that the test cut settings are correct. So now that our test cut is done, I'm just going to grab a weeding tool, and this is just my basic weeding tool, and I'm going to just lift up the corner of the star and just check how it's cut. And that came out so easily that setting is absolutely perfect for this vinyl, and that's why we do a test cut, just to make sure that we're not going to waste our vinyl. So now we can go back to Design Space and we can click on Finish. Now we want to flip the designs around, so we don't want the star anymore, so let's click on the little eye, and then we do want the pink design, so click on the eye again. There it is. So now we've still got our piece of vinyl on the mat ready. Now we can cut that. So let's go to Make It. We'll choose the same settings, so click on Continue. We'll choose Vinyl and then pressure as light or less. And then we'll go over to the machine and cut it. So the cut of our main design is now finished, so we can weed it out. So I'm just going to grab my weeding tool again, and I'm going to weed it on the mat. Just pull it back and use my weeding tool to help me to lift up the pieces that are in the middles of the letters. And you can see up in the corner there where the star was, it hasn't affected the cut of this design at all, which is lovely. So that's all the waste vinyl. And we just weed out the centres, and this design will be ready to apply to the balloon. So I hope you found this video to be useful and that it's helped you if you're a beginner in the Cricut world. If you've got any questions or comments, please drop them down below. I'd love to hear from you, and don't forget to subscribe and drop me a like as well. So all that's left to be said now is have a great week, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.